This episode is brought to you by Feedback Now, the world's best real-time feedback platform, and by the Experience Strategy Collaboratives. Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast with Joe Pine, author of The Experience Economy and, well, more bestsellers than I have time to list in a 20-minute episode. Dave Norton, an experience futurist and founder of Stone Mantle, and me, Aranza Savas, an expert in coaching, motivation, and behavior change. Each week, we bring you a trending story from the news and share our hot takes. Today's story is why I'm wishing for different technology on Father's Day. It's a deeply personal and forward-thinking piece by Robert Fabricant from Fast Company that challenges how we think about technology's role as we age. Now, Robert is writing as he prepares to enter his 60s while caring for his 94-year-old father with dementia. And Fabricant himself is a veteran UX designer who spent over 30 years at the intersection of design, technology, and human behavior. And he's really reflecting on what it means to be a part of the first generation, to grow up with computation, as he describes it, as a parent. I think that was such an interesting idea there in itself. Clearly, this is not a Father's Day tech gift guide, friends. Instead, it's exploring how the digital pioneer generation, which is probably to some degree every one of us listening, even though we span many generations, we need to fundamentally have different access to technology that is designed for aging well, for maintaining our cognitive health, and for preserving some agency as we face inevitable physical and mental decline. Fabricant argues that while we're obsessed with performance optimization, especially in the U.S., and real-time health tracking, I'm looking at you, Dave Norton, we're missing the bigger opportunity to create ambient, adaptive technology that could help us age with some dignity. Now, I'm reading this article through my own lens. Certainly, I just lost my dearly beloved grandmother who raised me, who was also in her 90s a few weeks ago. And she was the most vibrant, extraordinary woman I know, redefined the idea of aging well physically for pretty much anyone who knew her. She was literally hula hooping with me on the day she died. And we watched her running well into her 90s, into the last weeks of her life, doing yoga and the splits and headstands every day, all the way to the very end. However, cognitively, she really experienced the declines that took her life. It wasn't her body, it was her mind, it was the stress and confusion of cognitive decline. And so, of course, I can't help but really resonate with what Robert's talking about here, but also feeling really hopeful and excited that there are technologists out in the world who are focused on these questions. For me, from a behavior change lens, I also get super excited about this article because so much of it is about dignity. You know, I mean, one of the points that he makes that I got really excited about is that we're thinking about adaptive technology as an accessibility feature right now. And we're saying, you know, like, how do we improve contrast for the folks who have poor vision? How do we improve audio quality for the folks with declining audio processing? But then he says, like, why aren't we doing that for cognitive decline as well? And I think there's just so many really powerful ideas in here that play so well with what we've been talking about on this show and in our work around context as a driver for innovation and differentiation for the future. So, yeah, super excited to dig into this with you guys. Joe, kick us off here. What excited you or troubled you as you read this article?
Well, first, Francis, sorry to hear about your grandmother. It
Thank
can be a very trying time.
I'm like trying so hard to talk about it casually. It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. I understand that. But my father died of Parkinson's disease,
Ugh.
which is what, and I know his father had it, and I know he had at least one brother that had it. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll get that at some point. And this was, I think, 2019, right before the pandemic, and maybe 2018. And so, it was probably the physical stuff that got him, but there was definite cognitive decline in going through that. One of the things that hit me about the article that I thought was a little strange was he started off with very much trepidation about technology, almost a fear of what it can do, or that we would have to use it rather than like live normally. But then got into it, and it was like, hey, there is all this possibility. We should take advantage of this. We should have things that are out there that address cognitive decline, not just the other types of decline that they have. And I think I have high hopes for that. Particularly, it's something that I think AI can, it's sort of like almost down the plate for something that AI can help us with. We'll see what Sam Altman and Johnny Ive come out with their new partnership and whatever non-phone device they want to be on your body to have you help. I mean, whatever that is, this has got to be like the use case for it. And Dave, remind me, we've both separately talked about superpowers, me and my book on infinite possibility, and you much more in other areas. And a thought that occurred to me as well, if it gives non-cognitive decline people, I almost said normal, but didn't want to stay away from that. But superpowers, well, can it give people with cognitive decline just the ability to live like they used to without that decline being noticed?
Yeah, it struck me. I had my dad up a couple of weeks ago to get some cognitive tests done, and he did really well actually on the cognitive test. But there's clearly some things that are going on, and so I tried to get the the new Apple AirPods that give you the ability to use them as hearing aids. And I have to agree with what the author is saying here. I mean, it's great that you can use them as hearing aids, but they buried the feature so deep. There's
Yeah.
no way my dad can find those features unless I turn them on for him. That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? Like
Right.
that just makes no sense. And yet the promise is wonderful because it can do things like block out the external noise. You have noise cancellation. Cancellation. You can focus on a particular voice so that you can hear in large groups, which is a big problem for people who need hearing aids in restaurants and places like that. So the people have been thinking for a long time in terms of user interface. And now we have to move to a different place where it's like, what if the person can't actually use the technology? How do we assist them? And that's what I liked about this particular article it's going to a different level altogether. I don't know if that made any sense or not, but you know what I'm
Yeah, I mean,
saying?
I think what you're saying in there is that it is an invitation to really look at what we mean by contextual data and by contextual experience design. And so, who is your customer? What mode are they in this moment? What are they capable of in this moment? And being really thoughtful about who our potential users are too, because so much of the design is for a really small segment of the population.
Yeah,
Well,
early adopters.
Well, yeah, or young people or
Or
young white people, right? Like it's for the people who are making the decisions about what technology does. It's not about all the other people necessarily. And so this does require a really, a really big shift and how tech roadmaps are prioritized for different audiences. We know how much clutter there is in experience data and how hard it is to pinpoint the real issues. That's why we're so excited to introduce you to our strategic partner, Feedback Now, the world's best company for real-time feedback. You've heard us talk about contextual insights and understanding customer situations. Well, that's exactly what Feedback Now does. They process over 130 million customer opinions each year in over 50,000 unique locations around the world. Companies who employ Feedback Now see an average increase in satisfaction of 15% in just 6 weeks, my friends. Feedback Now is the choice for real-time sentiment data collection for some of the world's best airports, retailers, and hospital systems. Why? Because they don't just capture immediate customer sentiment. They help you see the patterns in your data. No amount of AI can compensate for not having real customers giving you real-time insights into your experience. That's what Feedback Now, with a little assistance from Stone Mantle, does. And friends, I am happy to announce that Feedback Now and Stone Mantle's Insights teams are giving away a free pilot program to one lucky listening company. All you have to do is go to their website, which we've listed in the show notes, share your idea for a real-time data project that you wish someone would help you with. The crack team at Stone Mantle and Feedback Now will review all of those entries for the one with the highest potential to produce the most interesting and profitable results and select one winner, which we'll announce right here on the show.
One of the things we've learned from manufacturers and designers on particularly handheld devices and things like OXO, right, is that if you design for somebody that has trouble using it, people who have no trouble normally use it will still benefit from it and will still be able to use it more easily and so forth. And I think that's the thing with technology, is design it for not the down the play, not the median of the bell curve. Design it for those that have issues in that, and if you do, everybody will benefit from that.
Well, and I think that's a great example. Like with these AirPods, you could literally say, "Hey, turn on the hearing aid feature." "Hey Siri, turn on the hearing aid feature." But if you have somebody that can't actually remember the word Siri, then it becomes very complicated for them. So there's some real challenges that you have to kind of think through with this kind of design. Going back to this idea of superpowers for a second here, I just wrote an article on Substack about superpowers last week, I think.
That's why it was in my mind.
Yeah, right. That was there. It's fascinating that some of this technology, that's supposed to correct your eyesight, once the consumer realizes that you can kind of correct their vision, you can kind of focus on some particular aspect, it's not a big leap for them to then want to go to X-ray vision. Like they can automatically make that jump. They can say, "Hey, if it can do this, then maybe I should be able to watch TV on my eyeglasses too." Maybe there's an exponential increase in what they expect when you start adding artificial intelligence to devices that were designed to kind of help with impairments. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying too about usability, I mean, I think one of my key takeaways from this article is that we're asking technology to provide more passive support. And it should require less activation on the part of the user. That said, we still want the ability to customize by the user, right? So make the features passive and the customization active.
Yeah, and that's why
ideally the customization should be inactive or should be passive, right? And I think that's where we're all kind of like, we want all our tools to be better because we want that learning to be passive. We want it to know our needs, to anticipate them more rapidly. And when we get frustrated with humans or technology, it's usually because they haven't synthesized the data we've been given them through our behaviors and improved their service for us based on what we're doing. Because it's like, unconsciously, we know we are giving you the answers. Use them. And that's all we want technology and people to do. We want everybody to be psychic. Unfortunately, humans are not getting better at that and probably never will. But technology certainly has to.
Yeah, that's what I've long called adaptive customization, right? That adapts to it. And the term, I've heard it before in the Fast Company article, was ambient intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. That it's just there, right? It's just in the air that we breathe, and so I mean, metaphorically still, but that's where we need to get to, particularly when, Dave, as you point out, people have trouble turning things on and off and figuring out all the mechanisms that the user interface forces us to go through instead of just figure it out.
Yeah. No, and I like to refer to it as contextual awareness. I mean, I think we're talking about the same thing. Mm-hmm. What I learned from this article is that contextual awareness might include a diagnostic. So you have the ability to do a hearing loss diagnostic with the AirPod feature, but why not be able to do a cognitive diagnostic? And you just ask a few simple questions that would help you to understand where the person is in their longevity effort. If you know that they're 90 years old, you can ask a simple question like, how old are you? And if you know that they're 90 years old, maybe you adjust things automatically because you've asked that question. That also makes me wonder, Joe, is there a role for this kind of contextual aware longevity kind of assistance type technology in transformations? What's the relationship there? I don't know if you've given that any thought.
Well, yeah, no, it's absolutely directly related because people have desires, needs, and aspirations, and as you get into that, and you think about how people that are still very cognitively aware that they are cognitively declining, right? And they're sort of, they know it happening, and they really hate that it's happening. And so just to be able to be normal is a transformation, particularly as, if you think about the normal line as they're going down, is how can you keep me up to that line? It may not be something new that they've never been, but it is a transformation to be able to maintain what they've used to, the way they've been, and that becomes the way that what they want to be. So I think definitely the technology companies can think transformationally in terms of that. But it also means that there should be guides that can help out, like, who's doing that diagnostic and how you can thereby help them based on what they learn and be able to watch over them as they go through this journey, and every once in a while at least be able to make make a difference in what's going on.
I love that too from a motivation standpoint, because humans are notoriously terrible at setting realistic expectations for ourselves and to tell us, hey, this is your baseline. You're not starting from 90, sweetheart. You're starting from 75. And you only declined to 74 this year, whereas those who are not making the changes you are making declined to 50%. I mean, actually, pretty cool data. Right. A decline, yes, but a decline in comparison to those who aren't practicing the behaviors you are is actually a massive improvement. And I think the data can be really powerfully used. I also kept thinking as we read this, it was talking about Apple's strategy, right? And this belief that ultimately their greatest contribution to the history of the world would be through health and wellness, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what a smart strategy. I was at the Apple offices years ago with the Apple Watch team. and they were talking about the wallet being the big future, like that their mission and vision was to replace everything in your wallet with the Apple Wallet. And they're doing a pretty good job of that. But I actually think Apple Health as a strategy has much greater potential. And from a business standpoint, I mean, talk about becoming irreplaceable, right? If right now I use Jabra headphones, but because frankly, the audio quality is better. New York Times, Wirecutter told me they were way better and I trusted them. There's a lot of reasons that went into that. Are they perfect? No, but they're half the price and better audio quality. So like if I'm shopping for that reason, then I made the right decision. But if what I was shopping for were a health tool, a partner in my total well-being, I would add something that gave me exponentially greater, more valuable data through its interaction with my other Apple tools, then I might actually wear the Apple Watch that's been sitting on my desk charging for 6 months and buy the Apple headphones and like toss the not even obsolete Jabra ones, right? Like, so to me, that just says like, this is such a powerfully differentiating strategy in its own right for companies to think about.
I think that we've touched on a lot of topics that we've covered in kind of our strategy thinking, and Joe in your work, and Rancis in your work, and my work. One of the things we haven't talked about is life systems. This is clearly where things are headed. And it's part of the reason why we talk about life systems. The technology needs to be integrated into our life in such a way that we're able to be systematic about how we use it. It works with the systems that we've created for our lives. And we have something that's helping us across those different systems. And I think most of us assume that eventually artificial intelligence in the form of some kind of personal assistant will make a difference. But the more I'm thinking about this article and what it's suggesting, the more I'm realizing that, if Apple's already got my health data, and maybe if artificial intelligence is reading, like we were talking about last week or the week before, the notes that the doctor is sending about my dad's cognition, then maybe the technology should adjust automatically to the cognitive situation that the person finds themselves in, or be able to give them a preset list of modes that we know that they're going to support. Like I'm in a restaurant and I've got a group of people that are talking to me, and it automatically verifies that you're in a restaurant, and then it sets the hearing aids so that you can respond to that, and you don't have to do anything. I think that's part of what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That it'd be adaptive in that way to the context, to the situation, to what it knows. I mean, it should know you're in a restaurant through GPS. Of course, it could be a very quiet restaurant at that point. You don't need it, but it should be able to then just tell by what's going on. What it's listening. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I was sitting here thinking about, as we close out, the fundamental design questions that experienced strategists should ask themselves after reading this article and listening to this conversation, and questions I hope we'll all continue to ask ourselves together. And I think one of the questions is, are we designing for performance or for resilience? And really thinking longitudinally about how our products are used and how they grow with our customers. I think we should ask ourselves, as we talked about before, who we're actually designing for and who we're excluding in our design. The signals that we're already collecting from our customers through their use of our products that we're not using to add value for our customers at different stages in their journey. How we make, to your point, guys, how we make adaptation ambient, to use that word, rather than so freaking hard. Um, and how we really create and deepen the supportive relationship between users and technology. And I think there's many more questions coming out of this, but those are just a few of the ones that came to mind for me. Really loved this conversation with you guys. Excited to unpack the next one with you. If you're listening to this episode, talk to us. Again, we are nerds. We want to talk about this stuff all day, and 20 minutes is not long enough, but we want to be nice to you and make sure you can digest these quickly, so we keep them short. So let's continue the conversation, and we can do that over on Substack at theexperiencestrategist.substack.com. Meet us there. It's a party.